السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the book of al-Rawd al-Murbi, and we are still in the chapter of al-Adhan, and we stopped at the statement وَيُقِيمُ مَنْ أَذَّنَ. وَيُقِيمُ مَنْ أَذَّنَ. يقيم is the present tense of أقامة from al-Iqamah. So al-Iqamah, the one that makes iqama is the one that gave the adhan. وَيُقِيمُ مَنْ أَذَّنَ. He says here istihbaban, from the perspective of al-istihbab. That means it's only recommended. It's not a must. It's not an obligation. Because al-adhan in itself, since it's not an obligation, so the iqama, the one that gives the adhan, is the one that is recommended that he would make the iqama. فلو سبق المؤذن بالأذان فأراد المؤذن أن يقيم فقال أحمد. Here now it's a مسألة. لو سبق المؤذن. المؤذن is the one that is his job is the adhan. See, he is the mu'adhin al-ratib. He's the mu'adhin of a specific place or specific masjid. But someone gave the adhan before him, subiq. That means he's been surpassed, or someone gave adhan before the regular mu'adhin of the masjid. فأراد المؤذن أن يقيم. So now the mu'adhin, it's the time of the iqamah. We have someone, the time entered, he find no one is there, so he made adhan. He's not the mu'adhin of the masjid. He's not the one that is responsible for the adhan. The mu'adhin comes afterwards, the mu'adhin al-ratib, the one that is, his job is the adhan of the masjid. He wanted to make then the time of the iqamah. He wants to make the iqamah. فقال أحمد, Imam Ahmad رحمه الله, he says لو أعاد الأذان كما صنع أبو محذورة. Either he repeats the adhan as Abu Mahzura, he did a narration that that's what he did. He repeated the adhan, then the iqamah. فإن أقام من غير إعادة فلا بأس. If you make iqamah without repeating the adhan, فلا بأس, there is no harm in this case. قاله في المبتع. Right? And whether this is as Imam Rahimahullah said it, or it's anyway, so this is the mu'adhin al-ratib, as he says, because this is now someone had took his right of giving the adhan. So he says here that if he makes the adhan again, or if he just make the iqamah, this is what is permissible, there is no harm. And this athar, or when someone, he saw Abu Mahdura, someone gave the adhan in his position, so Abu Mahdura, he came and he made the adhan, and then he made the iqamah. He says في مكانه. في مكانه, that means in his position. أيسن أن يقيم في مكان أذانه. في مكانه, that means in the same makan, in the same place of the adhan, it is recommended to give the iqamah. That it's recommended أن يقيم في مكان أذانه, in the same place. And في مكان أذانه, that means in the same spot, as long as it's not difficult, as going to be mentioned inshallah ta'ala. He says أيسن أن يقيم في مكان أذانه إن سهل, if it's easy. لأنه أبلغ في الإعلام, because it's more reaching for al-i'lam, or informing people of the adhan, and therefore the iqamah. فإن شق, if it's difficult, كأن أذن في منارة, as he made the adhan in the minara, which is the tall building in some of the masajid, أو مكان بعيد عن المسجد, or a place that is far from the masjid, أقام في المسجد. If that's the case, then he should make the iqamah in the masjid, because if he makes the iqamah up in the minara, by the time he comes down, then he's gonna miss some of the salah. Or if the place that he made the adhan is far from the masjid for whatever reason, then they should make the iqamah in the masjid. Why? لِأَلَّا يَفُوتَهُ بَعْضُ الصَّلَاةِ, so that he does not miss some of the salah. Because the imam doesn't have to wait for the one that made the iqamah to come, for example. لكن لا يقيم إلا بإذن الإمام, but rather, and which is a very clear matter, he is not to make iqamah except by the permission of the imam. So who has the right of the iqamah is the imam. And this is the mu'adhin, as it's mentioned in the books of the hadith, that he would come to the Prophet ﷺ, or he would not give adhan till the Prophet ﷺ come out of his room. Once he sees the Prophet ﷺ, then this is by itself. He doesn't have to see the Prophet ﷺ saying to him, make iqamah. Just the fact that the Prophet ﷺ comes out, that means this is the permission for him to make the iqamah. So this is, the mu'adhin, he's in charge of the adhan. No one is to tell the mu'adhin when to make adhan, because he's supposed to know and he's supposed to be amin, trustworthy. But for the iqamah is the authority of the imam. So the mu'adhin does not give iqamah except by the permission of the imam. Or the imam would say to him, if at this time I didn't come, then so and so would lead the salah, or things of that nature. But he's not to make iqamah on his own like this, because it's time. And this is one of the things that some people, they can easily make that mistake when it's written in the schedule of the salah, the time of the iqamah. Right? This by itself, even though it's just a way to make it easy for the people, but it's supposed to be the authority of the imam, or the one that acts on behalf of the imam. But if a person made adhan and then it's because it's the iqamah is at 1:30, so 1:30 exactly the mu'adhin would stand up and just make iqamah, and no one knows who's going to lead the salah, that's something that is not to be done that way. It has to be clear that the imam is present or walked in, or someone gave him permission, or the imam, he said, if I didn't come by this time, then see who's supposed to lead the salah, and you take permission, and then you make iqamah. He says, ولا يصح meaning الأذان إلا مرتبا. The adhan is not valid, not sahih, except مرتبا. مرتبا, that means in order. كأركان الصلاة, as the pillars of the salah, like the tartib, like the orders of the pillars of the salah. So if someone made it without the order that we know, then it's not valid. متواليا, that means with continuity, as we talked about that in the wudu. That means he does not stop in the middle of the adhan and do something else. Urfan, that means from the urfa perspective, when someone sees him, he would realize that he's making adhan, not that he stopped making the adhan. لأنه لا يحصل المقصود منه إلا بذلك, because the objective of the adhan is not attained except by that, meaning the continuity or al-muwalah, because it's about informing the people of the beginning of the time. So it has to be in order, the words are said in order, and it has to be with continuity. A person does not stop and then come after a few minutes to continue the adhan. And if that's the case, then he has to start over. He says, فَإِنَّ نَكَّسَهُ لَمْ يُعْتَدَّ بِهِ. فَإِنَّ نَكَّسَهُ, that means inverted it. That's a tankis, is to not to do something in order, but rather to do it without order. And تنكيس الشيء is قلب الشيء, is to invert something. لم يعتد به, valid, that means it has to be repeated. He says, ولا تعتبر الموالاة بين الإقامة والصلاة إذا قام عند إرادة الدخول فيها. لا تعتبر الموالاة بين الإقامة والصلاة. The muwalah, the continuity, is not to be recognized between the iqamah and the salah. That means if the iqamah is made, it doesn't have to be that the salah right afterward has to be made. Right? إذا أقام عند إرادة الدخول فيها, or if he made the iqamah, as long as he made the iqamah to start the salah. So meaning that if the iqama is made, right, and the imam talked to someone talked to the imam, it's valid. It does not have to be repeated. The iqama does not have to be repeated. So this is where the muwala. Al-muwala is while giving the adhan. Al-muwala, the continuity, is while making the iqama. But after the iqama is made, you know, there a period of time they can wait without continuity, yes. And the Prophet ﷺ, as it's mentioned in the authentic hadith, that after the iqama, the Prophet ﷺ said to the people, stay in your place. And he went and اغتسل. He took a shower عليه الصلاة والسلام, and he came back because he was in state of janaba. So that means it's a period of time between the iqama and the beginning and the start of the salah. Of course, it's recommended that once the iqama is made, that the imam is busy with the things that he would do to start the salah, as the Prophet ﷺ would make the sufuf, the rows, straightening the rows, making sure which is part of the salah, which he says stawu 3 times or so, making sure that the rows are straight. But this is the mas'ala here. If something happened, or one time the Prophet ﷺ, someone spoke to him after the iqamah, and he kept talking to him after the iqamah. Some people, they think that this is something that is invalid, or it invalidates the iqamah, or the iqamah has been made, that means the salah has to be done immediately afterwards. No. So al-muwala is not mu'tabara, is not something to be recognized after the iqamah and before the salah. As long as إذا أقام عند إرادة الدخول فيها. If he made the iqamah for the willing, because he want to enter the salah. Not that he would intentionally make the iqamah knowing that he's going to make iqamah now and he's going to start the salah in few minutes. No, that's not something to be done as an intentional before giving the iqamah. ويجوز الكلام بين الأذان وبعد الإقامة قبل الصلاة. ويجوز الكلام, it is permissible to speak between the adhan and after the iqamah before the salah. So of course after the adhan, before the adhan and the iqamah, it's if people speak, this is valid and this is an obvious thing. And the word yajuz, permissible, it does not mean that this is something recommended to be done, or it's from the sunnah that people would speak. They think that we have to speak between the adhan and the iqamah, or bayna adhan here, while making the adhan, bayna al-adhan. So here 2 places, bayna al-adhan wa ba'da al-iqamah. Bayna al-adhan, first, between the adhan and the iqamah, there's no harm, of course. Nobody ever said that this is not permissible. But here, bayna al-adhan, while making the adhan, he says, Allahu Akbar, and then he had to say something. Can you please turn the lights on? He said that to someone, for example. That's permissible. It's not the best thing for a person to do that as to be at ease with it, but it does not invalidate the adhan. This is what is meant. He does not have to repeat the adhan from the beginning. ويجوز الكلام بين الأذان وبعد الإقامة, and after the إقامة. Why didn't he say بين الإقامة? Because بين الإقامة is not something that is feasible sometimes to happen, because the iqamah, as mentioned before, it's on the hadr, is to be said right away without stopping in between. So there's no stopping while a person is making the iqamah. But with the adhan, he stops with every word, so that it's valid that it might be needed for him to speak or to say something. But here بعد الإقامة قبل الصلاة, it's also permissible to speak after the iqamah, before the salah. As we said, the Prophet ﷺ did. And it's, of course, what is the priority here is to leave all of this, but if it's done, then there's no harm in this case. Even if someone spoke while giving the iqamah for a word or something like this, then it does not invalidate also the iqamah. He said, لا يصح الأذان إلا من واحد. Now, he talks about the adhan is not valid in some cases. And ولا يصح, that means it has to be repeated. ولا يصح الأذان إلا من واحد. that means it has to be from one, واحد, unless it's needed, and we mentioned before that they would need more than one mu'adhin at the same time to raise their voices. ذكر, male, so the adhan is not valid from a female. عدل, عدل is someone that is just, but the adala here refers to the religion of the person. So al-adl, ولو ظاهرا, even if it's just apparently, that means he is not a fasiq. So in this context, what al-adl means that he's not a fasiq, he's not someone that is openly commit sins. But if someone, is hidden, or then no one is to go to check after him. And of course, if someone fasiq, for example, he made the adhan, and this is had mentioned by the ulama as another riwayah that the adhan is valid. But he says, ولا يصح الأذان إلا من واحد ذكر عدل ولو ظاهرا, meaning at least apparently, physically. فلو أذن واحد بعضه وكمله آخر. If one made the adhan, some of it, and another person completed it. A person is giving adhan, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, then someone else comes and he continue the adhan. Right? This is one case. أو أذنت امرأة, or a woman gave the adhan. Number two. Or خنثى, hermaphrodites. أو ظاهر الفسق, or someone that is very clearly فاسق, someone that openly commits sins. لم يعتد به, his adhan, or these people, their adhan is not valid. Is not valid. The adhan of al-fasiq, there's another riwayah, there is another narration from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah that it's valid, meaning that it shouldn't be, right? So it's but then if it's, but not to make a position, that's another thing. It's not permissible to give the position of the adhan to someone that is fasiq, someone that is openly commit sins. So, but the most strong opinion in the madhab that his adhan is not valid, meaning the fasiq, because he's not ameen, he's not trustworthy on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if he openly commits sins. So this is, there is, with regards to the adhan of women, if they're together and she made adhan, this is permissible if they're only together and not men are there, and even though this is not something that is recommended for them. So, but this is how things are. So, ولا يصح الأذان إلا من واحد. So, واحد in here refers to it's ibadah, right? So, one person is to make the ibadah. It's like someone is making salah, 2 rak'ah, and then someone else continue his 2 rak'ah. He's not making the salah, he comes and he continues. No, of course, because it's ibadah for one person. So the adhan has to be done all for one. ذكر, male, عدل, just ولو ظاهرا. فلو أذن واحد بعضه وكمله آخر. So this case, أو أذنت امرأة أو خنثى أو ظاهر الفسق لم يعتد به. Then he says ويصح الأذان ولو كان ملحنا أي مطربا به أو كان ملحونا. Now you have here two things here. Adhan here is valid ويصح. And when the word also mentioned يصح, it doesn't mean that this is the most recommended thing, but it's about the validity of it. So the adhan is sahih, is valid, is correct. ولو كان ملحنا, even if it was ملحنا. ملحنا here, that means مطربا. مطربا, that means it's with a melody. So if someone makes the adhan with a melody, it's a valid adhan, but it's not the sunnah, it's not what is recommended, and that's usually by stretching what not to be stretched and making short what not should be shortened and things like this. And at-tatrib is to basically give it with a melody, and this is something that is, even if it's done that way, the adhan is valid, but it's not what is recommended. Adhan is about informing people of the beginning of the salah, of the beginning of the time, not to sing for people. أو كان ملحونا. ملحونا is wrong linguistically, and that's like the word اللحن في القراءة في the recitation of the Quran. The word اللحن, that means making mistakes, not with melody. So he says أو ملحونا, but here لحنا لا يحيل المعنى. But as long as the mistake does not change يحيل المعنى. And إحالة المعنى is when something is referred to something else. So the meaning of what he said does not mean the words of the adhan because of the mistake in the way that he pronounced or he read or he said the adhan. So and this is can be easily done. Like for example, when people say Allahu Akbar, this is that invalidates the adhan. Or making again words or stretching sometimes some of the letters that would give a different meaning. Or even some of the ulama, they said when someone makes or say Allahu Akbar as a question with a tone of a question, saying Allahu Akbar, as if he is questioning, not making it as a statement. So this is اللحن in this meaning, يلحن لحنا ولحونا, like this, that means he makes a mistake, and sometimes even making mistake of al-i'rab, that means with the tashkil, the vowel that would change the meaning, right? So now, like for example, if someone says أشهد أن محمد, right? It's supposed to be أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. Or one of the common mistakes that people would say, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. It's wrong. It's supposed to be أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. Right? But so he says here, this is ملحون. This is from اللحن, where it's changing the meaning or making a mistake. If it changes the meaning, then the adhan is not valid. لحنا لا يحيل المعنى. If it doesn't change the meaning, ويكرهان, if it doesn't change the meaning but it's لحن or ملحنا, then it's makruh, it's disliked. ويكرهان, he says ومن ذي لثغة فاحشة وبطل إن أحيل المعنى. ومن لثغة فاحشة. اللثغة is when someone has difficulty in some of the letters, he's not able to say it. Like someone is not able to say the ra, for example, or the ghain or the sin or the ta or something like this. So he changes a letter. He's not able to say one letter, so he says something else. Not sure what an example here, but instead of saying, for example, hayya ala salah, he would say hayya ala salah, right? This is how he's saying the adhan. It's disliked because it's not hayya, it's hayya. But this is and the luthgha, that means he would say أشهد أن محمدا, instead of saying Rasul, he says Yasur, Yasul. He's not able to say Ra. And it has to be fahisha, that means it's very clear or very abhorred. That makes it a person sounds wrong completely. He says وَبَطَلَ إِنْ أُحِيلَ الْمَعْنَى, it becomes invalid, that then becomes invalid if he changes the meaning. Right? So this is with regards to these some of these matters. And as Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, one time he heard a man making the adhan with melody. He's singing the adhan. So Abdullah ibn Umar, he says, if Umar radiallahu anhu was alive, he says لَحْيَيْك, he would undo, he would make your jaw loose. That means he'll punch you or something of that nature. Because it's against the the humbleness and the respect that should be given for the adhan. And some of the stretches that it does not make appropriate sound of the adhan, like as it's also mentioned from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, when he said to someone, would you like someone to call you when he's calling your name, saying, Ya Muhammad, it's Muhammad. So why you have to say Ashhadu anna Muhammad like this? Say it in the right way. Of course, it's not to be said Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. No, stretch the words, but with the proper methods of tweet. So ولو كان ملحنا أي مطربا به أو ملحونا. So you see the difference between the ملحن and the ملحون. One is for melody and one is for changing making a mistake. لحنا لا يحيل المعنى ويكرهني, and it's disliked. ومن ذي لثغة, which is changing a letter because he's not able to. But فاحشة, that transgress the limits, makes it very obvious and very clear. وبطل إن أحيل المعنى, that means the adhan becomes invalid if it changes the meaning. Right? This is not permissible. No, it makes it invalid if the meaning is changed. ويجزئ adhan يجزئ. Now we have يصح. يصح is valid, but it's not necessarily the most recommended way. So it can be makruh أن يصح. But here يجزئ. يجزئ, that means it's valid. صحيح is correct. But يجزئ, that means it's sufficient, it's valid. أذان من مميز, the adhan from a مميز, a child that is مميز. He's 7 years old and above. He knows the words of the adhan. He knows the importance of the adhan. And يجزئ because he says لصحة صلاته, because the salah of the mumayyiz is valid, is a correct salah. كالبالغ, exactly like the one that reached the age of puberty. So, and this is something that they would establish. I mean, if at the time of the Prophet والسلام, the mumayyiz would lead the salah. So that means if he can lead the salah, that means also his adhan is valid. ويبطلهما ويبطلهما. Now, after mentioning what's mujzi, what's sahih, now he says here that the adhan and the iqamah becomes batil. Some of the things that invalidates the adhan and the iqamah. And this is the muthanna. ويبطلهما, he makes them invalid, أي الأذان والإقامة. فصل كثير. فصل كثير. الفصل is separation. كثير, lots of فصل, lots of separation in time. بسكوت, while being silent. الحمد لله. While being silent. So this is ويبطلهما, if he بفصل كثير. ويبطلهما فصل كثير. بسكوت, for silent for many times. He says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. He's silent for a long time. And the same thing. This can invalidate the adhan or the iqamah. And this is something to be done عرفا, as if he stopped the adhan, as if he's doing something else. أو كلام ولو مباحا, or lots of kalam, lots of talking, even if it's permissible, even if the kalam is permissible. Why this becomes batil? Because there's no muwala, there's no continuity in this case. And he mentioned here kathir, so lots of fasl, separation, silence, or kalam, or speaking. Walau mubahan, right? This is the kathir is what makes it invalid, right? If it's silence or kalam that is permissible. So that means وكلام يسير محرم, makes يبطل الأذان والإقامة if there's a kalam not kathir, يسير, very small amount, but muharram, but haram. Like for example, he made a ghiba, right? While in between the words of the adhan, he made a ghiba of someone. Or, says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and he says, my adhan is better than this, I sound better than this muadhin in the other masjid. He's terrible. something like this. He made a ghiba of the other mu'adhin. So that his adhan is not valid. Even if he said one word, even if he makes a face gesture that shows that he is attacking someone. وكلام يسير محرم كقذف, making قذف, slandering someone. وكره اليسير غيره. وكره اليسير غيره, that means other than the haram. If it's also for a short period of time or something very small, it's also makruh. It is not liked. وكره اليسير غيره, that means other than محرم. غيره, that means other than what's forbidden. Meaning, and of course, this is as long as there's no need in this case. If there's no need. But if there's a need, then for small words that is needed, that it's okay, it does not invalidate the salah. Sometimes it happens if someone is given adhan, for example, he's alone and someone walks in and gives salam. Just something like this. He can reply to the salam. Right? But if there's other people in the masjid, then does not reply the salam, of course. So here, just to understand the mas'ala here, وَيَبْطُلُهُمَا, the adhan and the iqamah becomes batil, becomes invalid when it comes to the subject of al-fasl. That is because of the continuity. Either it's a long time of fasl or breaking the continuity with something permissible, that has to be faslu kathir. Or if it's yasir, then it's haram. If a person says haram, the fasl was for something haram, even if it's one word, that invalidates the adhan or the iqamah. He says, وَلَا يُجْزِئُ الْأَذَان قَبْلَ الْوَقْتِ. The adhan here is not لا يجزئ. It is not sufficient, is not valid. قبل الوقت, or the time of the salah. Because the adhan is شرع من أجل الإعلام. لأنه شرع للإعلام بدخوله. The adhan has been legislated to inform the people of the beginning of the salah time. So if it's made before the time, then it's not valid. It's not to be considered. He has to make the adhan again. So if someone by mistake make the adhan before the time of dhuhr starts, then when the time of dhuhr starts, then he has to repeat the adhan again. Or if he started the adhan and then the time of dhuhr started while he's given the adhan, so what he mentioned earlier is not valid, so he has to repeat it over again because it's one ibadah. So ولا يجزئ الأذان قبل الوقت لأنه شرع الإعلام بدخوله ويسن في أوله. It's recommended in the beginning of the time. That means if someone came late and it's past the beginning time of the adhan, can he still make adhan? Yes, but it's recommended in the beginning of the time. This is one of the things that, but without making it difficult for people, and it's one of the things that are very common in the West or in America or so, because people are more aware of the iqamah time and not the adhan, to make it easier for the people. So the muadhin, many places they would come before the iqamah by 10 minutes or so, and they give the adhan and they pray sunnah when the time of the salah started way before that. Right? It's valid, it's permissible. But if we have a muadhin, and someone would give the adhan in the beginning of the time, then that's a priority. So if the time of dhuhr, say for example, starts at 12:30, but people won't pray till 1:30, it's recommended that the adhan is made at 12:30, at the beginning of the time. If a person makes the adhan at 1:15, it's still valid, but it's best to be done from the beginning of the time of the adhan. So ويسن في أوله إلا لفجر, except for fajr, فيصح بعد نصف الليل, except for fajr, فيصح, so it's correct, it's valid after the middle of the night. That means if a person would make the adhan for the fajr, which is the first adhan, لحديث إن بلالا يؤذن بليل, because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that Bilal, he gives the adhan during the night, even though it's a short period right before the adhan of Fajr, the time of Fajr, but it says layl. So if it's what's the beginning of it, in principle is after the middle of the night, which is again bilayl, not time of Fajr yet. But what's recommended for it is right before the actual adhan of Fajr. فَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يُؤَذِّنَ ابن أم مكتوم. So eat and drink till Ibn Maktoum, he gives the adhan. So Ibn Maktoum, he will give the adhan at the actual time of al-Fajr. And this is special for Fajr because it has these two adhan for it. متفق عليه. It's agreed upon. Uh, ويسن ويستحب لمن أذن قبل الفجر أن يكون معه من يؤذن في الوقت وأن يتخذ ذلك عادة لئلا يغر الناس. It's recommended whoever makes the adhan before Fajr that he has someone else with him أن يكون معه من يؤذن في الوقت, someone else to make the adhan at the beginning, at the time of Fajr. So Fajr has two adhan. But it's only recommended if it's two individuals, separate, different individuals. Why? Because people will be confused. And again, the adhan is for those who are outside. So they get used to, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, whenever they hear Bilal for Fajr, they know that that's not the adhan of Fajr. So they continue to eat and drink if they have to. Or they finish up their salah if they're in the night prayer. But Ibn Maktoum, this is the adhan of Fajr. So they recognize the adhan and they don't switch because people, they would always know the time by the sound of the muadhin. But if one only give the two adhan, it's still valid, but it's recommended that there are two different people. وأن يتخذ ذلك عادة, and that he would make this as a habit. لئلا يغر الناس, so that he does not deceive the people. He would deceive them. People would be scared. Scared meaning that, oh, I missed. I break my fast because the adhan is made and he's still eating, but it's the first adhan, not the second adhan. ورفع الصوت بالأذان ركن. Raising the voice with the adhan is rukn, is a pillar of the adhan, because the Prophet ﷺ, he says, فارفع صوتك, raise your voice, because that's what the point of the adhan is, for people to hear. And how can someone doesn't do that? I mean, just for the sake of, as this masala is mentioned, if someone, say there's no microphones and someone stands and he says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, he says it, his vocal cords worked, but only him hearing the adhan. It's not adhan, he's not making adhan, so he has to raise his voice. It's a pillar. ما لم يؤذن لحاضر, unless the adhan is only for someone that is present next to him and there's no one else. فبقدر ما يسمعه, then the adhan, or what's valid, is whatever is sufficient for him to hear. Sometimes people that are in a place where if they raise their voice with the adhan, it's going to cause them some trouble. In the library, for example, right? And they would make salah. And adhan is not mandatory, but if they want to make adhan, they would lower their voice only for the few people that are making the jama'ah, for example. That's valid. It doesn't have to be that it's a must to raise the voice as for everyone to hear. So as you see here, how when it's rukn versus then it's not. ما لم يؤذن لحاضر, if the adhan is only to someone that is present. Then he says, let's take this last one. وَيُسَنُّ جُلُوسُهُ, it's recommended جُلُوسُهُ. Al-julus is to sit down. But what is meant here, and it's previously also mentioned, that it's recommended to stop or to stay. أي المؤذن, the mu'adhin, بعد أذان المغرب, after the Maghrib adhan. So يُسَنُّ جُلُوسُهُ, not literally to sit down, but rather not to make iqamah right away, to give time between the adhan and the iqamah. After adhan al-Maghrib. After adhan al-Maghrib, specifically mentioned here, after the adhan of al-Maghrib, because some people, they think that since the Maghrib is a very short period of time, so the iqamah of Maghrib should be right away after the adhan, because there's no time, and would not allow people to pray the sunnah prayer in this case. So, and that is the julus even for a short period of time, and that what is sufficient for 2 rak'ah. so أو بعد أذان المغرب أو صلاة يسن تعديلها or صلاة whether it's a very short period of time even if they're not going to pray the two rak'ah at least to sit for a few minutes or for a minute or less than a minute but something or the time that is sufficient to make salah that it's recommended to make it fast like two rak'ah fast two rak'ah قبل الإقامة before the إقامة so he says يسيرا not too long very short period of time لأن الأذان شرع للإعلام فسن تأخير الإقامة للإدراك because one of the very obvious ones and of course the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is very clear in this and he said صلوا قبل المغرب صلوا قبل المغرب صلوا قبل المغرب لمن شاء pray before Maghrib pray before Maghrib pray before Maghrib for those who will to pray so this is very obvious to allow the people those who want to pray at least two rak'ah to pray two rak'ah. But here he mentioned another wisdom لأن الأذان شرع للإعلام Adhan is made for informing the people. So if a person was not aware of the time of the salah till he heard the adhan, he's not to be blamed. He does not have to be aware of the adhan is coming closer. And this is by the ease and the mercy of Allah. This is especially if people are living among the Muslims. Someone in his shop buying and selling, busy with his worldly matters, that's fine. Someone in salah is making salah, for example, or whatever a person is doing. The adhan is made. The adhan is informing the people now the time of the salah started. So a person then in that case, he has to go get ready. So you have to allow him to get ready. لأن الأذان شرع للإعلام فسنة so it's recommended تأخير الإقامة to delay the إقامة للإدراك for him to attain it to catch the salah. But if you make it adhan and then right after that إقامة, that person did not have a chance to make wudu if he needs to make wudu. But again, nowadays, where people know exactly the time and the time of the adhan and the time of the iqamah, and of course, what's recommended is to come early and things of that nature, and the other etiquettes with regards to the imam, all of that is to be considered. طيب, we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala. At this point here, it says وَمَنْ جَمَعَ because of the time, and if you have any questions, please go ahead, inshallah. The first of all, the attendance code is iqama. The attendance code is iqama. Question: if wearing jewelry, necklace, bracelets, etc., is not allowed for men, does that mean they shouldn't be calling adhan? Yes. If the muadhin is wearing bracelet or imitating women and these types of things, he should not allowed to be giving adhan. And again, this is ibadah, and to observe these things is part of protecting the matters of the deen. The issue of the validity, if someone gave the adhan in such a situation, whether it's valid or not, especially with the subject of al-fasiq, or the one that is openly committing a sins, there's another riwayah that his adhan is valid, right? But it's not to be given to someone like that, or to be hired as a muadhin, someone that openly commits sins. Allahu A'lam. There could be some scenarios where Shia people pray in a Sunni masjid to the additional words in the adhan used by Shia count as a fasl that would invalidate the adhan for Sunnis. The adhan that has these extra words, hayya ala khair al-amal, and these types of things, there is more than one issues with this. This is, first of all, the adhan is sahih. The adhan is valid, as the ulama mentioned. It doesn't mean that this should be done, of course, right? But the adhan is valid because as long as all of the words of the adhan are being mentioned. So, but it's bid'ah, it's innovation in the deen, and it should not be allowed on all of this. But it doesn't invalidate. We have to differentiate between these two. And the fatwa of the ulama are upon this. Now, what is the evidence that tajweed rules must be followed during the adhan, such as restricting long vowels to 6 harakas? Because this is what things are to be uttered that way. And again, it does not invalidate the adhan if the tajweed rules are not observed. But it's recommended to do it this way. But if it changes the meaning, the mistakes, then that invalidates the adhan. But with the six haraka, in some situations, sometimes, or the other opinion, if it's stretched a little bit more, and they call it maddu ta'zim, the mad of exalting something, then it's okay. But it can fall into the makruh, especially with the tatrib, with making a melody or singing. In the hadith about 2 rak'ah between the adhan and iqama, is the main idea to indicate a length of time between the two calls, or is it to indicate the special reward of the 2 rak'ah? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ ما بين كل أذانين صلاة. There is always salah between the two adhan, and the two adhan here refers to the adhan and the iqama. That's something that is recommended. So this is in general, this is al itlaq at all times. Even if everyone that's supposed to come in the salah, they're all present. So it's not just about people getting ready for the salah, but it's always recommended for the at least 2 rak'ah between the adhan and the iqamah. That's meant by itself. So it's about the special reward of the 2 rak'ah, right? And not just al-fasl bayn al-adhan wal-iqamah, wallahu a'lam. If a man shaves his face, is it considered fisk for giving adhan? Shaving one's face, this is fusuq. This is a sin. And a person, if he shaves, his adhan is valid. Right? And again, as we said, the other riwayah, this is what is being acted upon, where the adhan is valid. The adhan is valid, especially with the sin that many people, they don't know that it's a sin. The same thing with someone that is haliq, someone that shaves leading the salah. The salah will be valid, but it's something that is disliked, of course. Now, but that is to avoid someone like this, to allow him to be the mu'adhin, or to allow him to be the one that gives or leads the salah. No. But if he does, the salah is valid. Praying behind someone like this, you don't have to repeat the salah. Salah is valid. وهي أي الإقامة 11 جملة بلا تثنية وتباح تثنيتها. Can we review the statement from the last class again? نعم. الإقامة is 11 جملة, sentence, بلا تثنية, without repeating it, and it's permissible to repeat it, meaning to make it like the adhan. So as we know, the adhan is 15 sentence, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, like this. But for the iqamah, anything that is repeated is to make it one. So you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar only twice, not 4 times. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, 1 time, not 2 times. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya al falah, that's 6. قد قامت الصلاة, قد قامت الصلاة, 2 times. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. That's 11 sentence. That's the iqamah. Tubahu tathniyatuha, he says that means it's permissible to repeat it like that, to make it like the adhan. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, like this. So it's permissible now. Is it recommended to say adhan at home by men of house, since we don't hear adhan at our places to seek virtues of the adhan? Yes, it's recommended in this case. It's not to be given if the adhan is being said in the city, but if people, they would, in a place where they don't hear the adhan, it's always good to hear the adhan. So they would do it for that purpose, and to seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can we give adhan in home if praying in jama'ah at home? Again, if people are used to go to the masjid, or the masjid is nearby, then they miss the salah, the iqamah is sufficient. But if people never hear the adhan, so it's something that is good to make it so that people would listen and hear the adhan. Now, Allahu a'lam. Barakallahu feekum. Hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, everything is clear, and don't forget, do your best you can, inshallah, to memorize the متن of الزاد إن شاء الله. طيب، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. وسبحانك اللهم ربنا بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.